Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast. We have Tom Heller-Njor with us, or your. Remember for last time convo, I think. Tom is co-founder and CEO at CostBits and Cost Advisory, still in Copenhagen, Denmark, gets to bed at 2 a.m. and wakes up at 6 a.m. grinding on his startup. Today we're going to talk about the startup world, AI, everything that Tom has been up to, because last podcast was pretty fun. It's brought to you by podpire.com this time, this podcast. That's my podcasting company. If you want to start or scale a podcast, monetize it through AdSense, through sponsors, and through leads, you can go to podpire.com. We have a free ebook and a masterclass to get you up in the podcasting game. Tom, welcome to the podcast. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thank you. Thanks. Well, it's been a while. It's been about a year since we did the last podcast, I think. We've been really busy. You know how it is. We're grinding away on a startup here, trying to get to a scale-up stage here. We've had a lot of focus on building and implementing our AI engines on the data since we spoke the last time. Last time we had a good solution for getting transparency on procurement and supply chain costs. That definitely worked. But what we're finding is that as long as we kept on presenting the poor data that people tend to have when they actually give it to us, we can do only as much, but we cannot really make it perfect, right? So we ended up saying, all right, let's just take the next, we thought it was going to be 6 months, ended up being about 13 months of just grinding away on how do we improve data. So I think that's a big leap for us. So we have a pre-announcement on our release 2.0 coming out in a couple of days. And we'll do a release in January on the 2.0 for CostBits going forward, which really is heavily AI stack built. The focus is to make sure that people can execute on the data, actually do real work in the day-to-day life and spend less time on trying to get the data out and get it to work, right? That's a tough ticket to pay, that's for sure.
And you recently reviewed your 2024. What were your major defeats and major victory for last year?
Well, I think a major realization, maybe a less of a defeat, is that we started this started like 6 years ago, like nice and slow, and for real, like 3 years ago with the full team, right? And some of the initial funding. In the beginning, we felt like we had to spend a lot of the time on, presenting data, getting the insights, and we still do that. What we learned in the last 6 years is that basically, simple AI or BI solutions like Power BI have really been encroaching on our space and doing the visualization of the data. So I think that was a big realization for us, saying, even though we can present it better, faster, we can do more, it just doesn't have the impact unless we can also fix the data, right? So I think that was a big aha moment that we had, maybe I think December, Jan, when we really started 2024. And that was a big segue for us on refocusing our entire build, our entire business, right? So I wouldn't say that's a defeat at all. I just think it's a realization that the market has progressed and it's changed. In a given year, we do hundreds of demos and, client and lead interviews, right? We spend a lot of time in the market. We've got a big procurement community. So we basically did this based on asking them, like, what do you really need? And their answers have changed dramatically since AI, really came to life with ChatGPT about 2 years ago, right? People think they can do more, but they just don't know how to do it. And we do.
And what have been these major changes according to you in 2024 with AI? Like me, I think the most impressive was that one could start building their own apps with agents like Replits and so forth. Then their own music with Suno, and recently at the end of the year, their own AI videos with Sora. And then you piece all of that together, well, magically you get a business, right? There's also the spreadsheet of AI that I've been using, Persona, for outreach. So slowly but surely, you're becoming this solopreneur AI builder kind of business. What has really caught your attention, and what have you implemented AI-wise in your own business to build CostBits?
Well, I think it's two different realms. What we see from our clients is a lot of our clients are still using AI in like small bits and pieces, like very narrow field applications. Like you're saying, you use AI to enhance your spreadsheet. You use AI to help you write that text you need to for that speech or that maybe that PowerPoint presentation for your board. It's very like small, very well-defined AI applications. And what we're finding is that people have a difficulty of either connecting it or expanding the use for it. And our specific space really is on the procurement supply chain data, right? So what we say is that it's fine, you can do this. We could have gone out and maybe we will at some point build like a procurement supply chain chatbot. I think we can probably build that in a week. It's super easy to do these days. We got all the material for it. What we find is much more challenging issue for us is to get all the procurement supply chain data to work. So our client size is typically, a couple of $100 million USD revenue up to maybe $1 or $2 billion USD revenue, right? So these are like larger mid-sized companies. They have all the data. They got some staff. They definitely have consistent procurement supply chain issues, but they also have so much data that they can't manage it. But they're not big enough to have a big data team, right? So they're kind of stuck, between the rock and the hard place. They have the issues, they have the data, but they don't really have the manpower, the knowledge, the AI engines to fix it. So our big, development this year has really been saying, how do we apply AI on the super challenging field of improving data, right? Taking the data out, stitching it there, finding all the holes, expanding on those, filling the gaps, and then enriching it, so we can actually use it to make informed decisions, right? Because the data in the finance systems is always piecemeal. It's always pretty crappy. People don't like maintaining master data.
And this last year, did you feel that you had product market fit with all the GTM effort you've put forward? Do you think it's lifting off the ground?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. I think we've finally, it takes a couple of years of hard tries and failures, some successes, right, to finally get it right. I think the price point we have right now definitely fits. The fact that we also see, I'm a procurement expert by heart, right? I've done this for about 30 years. And I wouldn't buy something that I haven't tested before, like simple thing, right? As a normal private person, you would normally want to see it, feel it. The t-shirt you're wearing, you want to feel it, you want to look at it. The shirt I'm wearing, you just want to get a feel for it before you buy it. The same thing goes for people in the B2B space. It just rarely happens that you can actually test something out. And you definitely often do not have the option to test out like really advanced, AI-enabled software within the space that we're working in. So we kind of flipped our sales effort, our attempt to go to the market totally upside down, and said, no, we'll do all the native integrations, we'll apply all our AI, make the data ready, and you can just log in. So if you use, Microsoft Business Central, it's 4 clicks and you're on the platform. And everything runs, right? And then you can make a decision, do you want to keep it or not? So I think the way we've approached the market has been much more of saying, what would I do if I was in the B2C market, and applying that line of thinking for the B2B? Right? And I think that's where you need to go, right? People don't want to buy these big, complicated, long implementation, super expensive solutions anymore. And I think we can do it smarter, so we've done that.
Right, and in terms of MRR, what are you aiming for this year?
We're looking for hopefully a couple of million, like pretty stable. That should be a target that's reachable.
MRR or ARR?
That's MRR, but that's in Danish crowns. So that would be ARR if you want to convert it to like a USD Canadian dollar thing.
Which is like 30K per month?
I think it'll be a bit more. We should be hitting at the end of the year, hopefully MRR about 100K per month USD.
Wow.
That's the target.
Okay, and how do you actually prevent churn? Is churn a big problem in your industry, or is it somewhat easy to keep their clients once they're in and they've experienced the benefits of the product?
Well, I think we're too early to know what our churn rate is going to be. But I think we have one big advantage, is that we have a secondary company called Cost Advisory, where we do all the advisory, right? And what we're basically saying is, if you buy the CostBits solution, you get full access to the advisory arm of what we have. So if you sit with our solution, you're looking at it and saying, okay, now the data works. I can see I have something I should do. I don't know what to do, right? Then we're just a call away or a chat away, and then we will guide people until they get the benefits. And then suddenly we go from being just a platform to being actually, a software-enabled advisory arm for it, which is super low cost, and you can immediately get a return on investment for what it costs to buy us within a couple of weeks, right? That would easily pay for a full year, right?
Right, and
we have to combine our services, so it's not just software, right? Because people do need help to realize these benefits. If it was super easy, we would have done it. It's not just data, right? They also need a bit of guidance. They have to do it, and we can help them do this in an easy way.
Right. And what's the percentage of consultancy via SaaS? And most would say like this is not scalable. What would you respond to these people?
Well, I think I think they're looking at it differently. We see this as one business, right? We have a SaaS business where part of that SaaS business is that they get access to the consultancy advisory that we have anyway. We both have it because the founder team is like super heavily, ingrained in the procurement supply chain space, but also because we speak with hundreds of people every year, right? And leveraging that information and bringing that back to the community. We just sent out a white paper a couple of months ago, which was entirely written by the community. I think it's a no regret. Right. So we don't see this as two businesses. Once in a while, we'll get called upon to say, can you help us do something that's much more advanced, which is outside the CostBits space? But within the CostBits space, we see this solely as one solution where we provide additional services to make sure people get the benefit that they need.
Roger that. Okay. In terms of the features of the SaaS, what do you have on the pipeline for this year?
But for us this year, we definitely want to expand to have more native integrations to the finance ERP system. We want to be sure that we have more systems where you can do this 4-click sign up, and then basically you can try it out. You can get a feel for it. You can play with it. There's no cost associated. If you like it, pay for it. If you don't like it, we'll just close it again. I think that's a big thing for us. And we will continue to expand our AI engines. So right now we have a massive cleanup on the supplier base, on the goods description, service descriptions, on the categorization of spend. We want to move into having more on the CO2 conversion. So when people go in, they may have 10 minutes to make a purchase. They don't buy via our platform, but they use it for guidance. Want to be able to look out the product or the service and then immediately get a full picture of this is the entire supply market, this is the range of cost, but it's also maybe the range of the CO2 emissions, the footprint they will have on the environment for doing that purchase and that transaction. So as we want to combine those strengths. So now we have the cleaner data, we want to expand on it. So imagine, I want to buy something semi or highly complex, and maybe I know one or two suppliers in that space. I mean, I've been buying oil rigs before, right? I've been buying, tanker vessels, helicopters, like relatively complex stuff. And I didn't know that supply market at all. But with our software, hopefully within a year or two, you can just look it up and say, okay, what I need to buy, a blowout valve for an oil rig, and then immediately get a full picture of this is a supply market. You need to do a tech spec, the contact, and get that done. But you can get all of that within just a few clicks, right? That's a massive time saver for them, right? And hopefully it helps people expand the way they use the market, which they don't today. Because if you don't have a good tool for it, you just keep on buying expensively at the same supplier market as you've done historically. Right? We want to push that behavior.
Do you feel that normal AI like ChatGPT or Perplexity could help you equally as good as your software to buy these niche, complicated items?
No, definitely not. No, the data that they have access to is not nearly, the same type of data we work on. We work on transaction data for hundreds of companies, right? So we're looking at real transactions, actual paid goods, real invoice transactions, which is a completely different data, data pool that you have if you use ChatGPT, right? Which is much more, public available information. So I think let me put it like this. If I was looking to buy a product, I could use ChatGPT to get a certain picture of the supply market. I can probably also just Google it. It'll give me a fairly good answer for somewhere. What I don't get is I don't get a confirmation that they've actually done the transaction. I don't get real data on whether or not that supply is stable, whether or not their financial stability is where it's supposed to. I don't get verification on whether or not they have the certifications that I'm looking for, right? And I can only get that if I have confirmed transaction data behind this. And we got tons of that. So we're not guessing based on the marketing stuff that people put on our homepage. We're guiding based on actual transactions, so we know it's solid. And that's a big difference. Like, we still leverage some of the same models, but it's just a very different pool of source data to make a decision from.
Do you feel you're standing on a moat? Is there competition in your niche?
I'm sure there will be competition at some point. Right now, we haven't met anybody who's doing this. Everybody basically wants to sell to, the Fortune 500s, and we don't. That's where we come from. I mean, most of the team comes from there. I come there. My co-founder comes from there, right? And basically, so the whole idea behind starting CostBits was we've seen some of these power tools. This is even pre-AI. And we felt there was a need to give this to the masses instead. Right? It's kind of democratizing these really strong tools, but also making it cheaper and affordable at the same time. With AI, this has just been speeding up tremendously, right? It's been a lot faster than what we'd even hoped for. So I think right now we're doing something that you can maybe get if you really want to pay 100 times the fee for it, or you can just sign up and you can try it. Right? Just go to the homepage and try it out. If you like it, you can keep it.
What's your plan? Because you're hustling quite hard right now, like 4 hours of sleep on a daily basis. Do you think you'll have a multi-million-dollar exit in a couple of years down the road? And what will you do?
I'll keep on doing this. That's the whole plan. The idea is to have the option for an exit and not do it. Right? Yeah, I don't want to. You want to. So at least our thinking in this founder team, right, and all our employees also have stock in this. We don't want to build for an exit. We want to build for running a sustainable long-term company. Now, hopefully, that should also give quite a good cash flow back to all of us, right? So we can reinvest that in the company, reinvest that in our families, who's been really taking the blunt of building this over the last couple of years, right? But the idea is not an exit. The idea is to build a big company. That's really what we want to do. And there's a huge market. I mean, just in our segment, there's at least 1 million companies across US, Canada, UK, and Europe, at least. And pretty much none of them have a solution for this.
That's interesting. I like your niche. What do you do on a personal level to optimize your performance as a founder?
Well, try to sleep 4 hours a day. Does that count? No alcohol, lots of
Definitely
training. It doesn't.
No, alcohol is good.
No, alcohol is good. I think no kidding, right? I mean, you got to do your exercises. Don't do the alcohol thing, and just be very structured, right? I mean, I'm one of those persons who do like to-do lists like crazy and then never use it. But the good thing is I get it out of my head, and then when I look at it 2 days later, I can prioritize based on that one. And half of it I shouldn't have done, so thank God at least it went on the list. The other half I've probably done, and that was prioritized. If I missed something, I can get it done, and the rest I'll just scrap. So I think prioritizing your time, that is the essence, right? That's 24 hours a day, and if you work 20 of them, then you got to optimize for that.
Love it. And what challenges have you faced last year? What fires did you have to extinguish in the business?
Well, I think there's always the fire of getting staff in, motivating them, knowing that this is a long-term hustle, right? It just takes time. I think one of my friends, he said this, I'm sure he quoted somebody else who was not himself, that, it takes 10 years to make an overnight success, which is something you can tell yourself as a founder who really wants this. Like me, my co-founder, Christian, really burns for this. This is what we're doing, right? This is the purpose for what we're going to be doing for the next couple of years, right? At least, hopefully a lot longer. But when you want to get people into a company, which is still relatively small, what are we, like 13, 14 people by now? You got to convince them there's a mission behind this. And by the way, they'll get paid later.
Right.
So I think motivating people for a mission while you still have to build it while you're running, I think that's it. I think it's just part of the challenge. I like it. It works. But I think that's the biggest thing, right? And you need to make sure that people that feel for it and they're happy what they're doing.
Right. And what are you seeing in the Norwegian startup ecosystem? What is lacking and what is an actual advantage vs or Silicon Valley counterparts?
Well, I think in the Danish startup system, we have the challenge of, there's a very high tax rate here. So I think that's one thing, right? And the tax structure that we have here doesn't really support the startup environment, because if you have stocks, you get taxed on those stocks even though you haven't sold it. It doesn't make any kind of sense, right? So every time people get shares, they get vested options, etc. Some sort of tax incentive or disincentive scheme that we need to work around. So I think the government is trying to do this, but we had something that we call the taxation from hell that they were trying to kill last year, and they kind of killed it, and then maybe not really. So I think the whole taxing system doesn't work, which is interesting because we got pretty good funding option from like a state perspective, right? So they want to do this, but they're doing some, but not the other part, right? So if you look at Sweden, for instance, where they have a very different tax structure for it, right? They have a lot more funding, much bigger VCs. They're a lot more aggressive. They're a lot more risk taking. So I think, obviously Sweden not being Silicon Valley, right? But that's one of the benefits you have in Silicon Valley. One thing is you have this massive aggregation of VCs and successful companies that kind of generates, momentum by itself. But you mostly have access to really risk-worthy capital, right? Which is tough to find in Denmark. That's for sure, right? So that's also why most of the unicorns we have here at some point had to take a step outside this country to, get to the unicorn status.
Are you still investing nowadays or fully focused on the startup world?
Just doing the startup world. I think that's where all the funding goes. That's where all the hours go. Like, you got to stay focused. Now, this is getting traction, so this is what we do.
Love it. Tom, where can people find out more about you?
Well, I think the easy thing would just go into our homepage at www.costbits.com or contact me on LinkedIn. I'm fully available. So do me an email, tn@costbits.com. That also works, right?